I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes.
I'm a big fan of telling a story and going on an exploration. Creative artists, whether they be musicians, painters, poets, writers, anyone sort of who samples their art in ways that tells a story that helps themselves as well as others. Well, for me, that feels like we need more of that in the world. Bringing people together through shared experiences. I mean, I'm a big fan of escapism as well, but asking those big questions about our own identity and evolution, exploring what matters in life, gets me really interested in, both the personal intent and the commitment that this involves, whether that's through necessity or choice, and also in the courage, resilience, and emotional intelligence that requires. My guest today, in my opinion, does this for me. He's a multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, musician, producer, and visual artist whose music is really, really impossible to categorize, which obviously I think is a good thing. It's so many influences in there that its identity is really unique, and that's just like it should be in my book. The visual work that he produces to accompany his music is really as beautiful and captivating as the music itself. And when I say captivating, I mean that both the sonics and the visuals really get your attention and make you think about what's inspiring this. And for me, at least, the natural consequence is to apply that to myself. And I'd really recommend checking out Rhododendron, which is a song about metamorphosis, healing, and new beginnings. And the stripped down piano and vocals version of that is just stunning. Anyway, so having talked myself way past myself by date yet again, Tony Njoku, it's an honor and it's really great to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on. It's really good to see you.
Thank you so much, Giles. I appreciate it. I appreciate the introduction as well.
Do you know, I was reading something in this publication called Adbusters that I follow, and it was about this scientist sort of finding this. Sorry, this sounds like we're going off on a real tangent, but this new sort of emotion. What they consider as a new emotion, which is awe. And I found it really, really kind of interesting because obviously, like, the word awesome is used so much these days, and it's kind of like being sort of watered down a little bit. I mean, awesome means kind of like everybody uses it to mean anything from like fantastic to sort of pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But it was showing about it was saying about how potentially it could be used as a pretty much as a sort of cornerstone for our own sort of development. And I just found it really, really sort of fascinating that it's now sitting alongside those sort of core emotions that we have.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I feel when I think of awe, I think of something that's overwhelming. I think
Exactly.
of beauty, maybe just grandiosity. That's what I think of when I think of awe. It's like, oh, this is it may be disorientating. It's like it makes you feel. Don't want to say the word small, but you get a sense of scale and perspective when I think of that emotion. But yeah, very interested to hear more about this.
It's interesting you say that because actually, what you described there is it. That vastness. I mean, one of the descriptors is vastness, and it's like which is basically like experiencing something, that's much bigger than sort of like the everyday stuff that we have, and that feeling of being small. It's almost like it's kind of humbling. And the other part of it was the scientists are saying is accommodation, and in accommodation, the kind of meaning, basically the process by which we kind of reevaluate our ideas and beliefs, and that's the thing that something huge can have on us. If it can kind of do that, if it has the power to do that, then I'm with that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like embracing that kind of emotion can be quite healing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of think about how does how does music, kind of change lives? How can it, for both the creators and the listeners, how can it really, kind of tap into some of these really core emotions that we have? Because it does, doesn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I mean, for me, I feel I'm very lucky to have like a dialogue with music, and I interact with it most at pretty much every day, and most of my day is
mm,
consumed listening or playing music. I'd say a good 70-80% of my day is that.
mm,
If it's in the background, or I'm actively listening, or I'm playing piano, or I'm whatever it is. I'm just enjoying the musicality of life all the
yeah,
time, and it definitely has that effect on me. There's a certain, numerous pieces of music that give me that sense of awe and wonder and humility and respect for whatever this experience of life is, the
mm,
mystery, respect for the mystery, I guess. And um, I think there's one, for me, especially as a music creator,
mm,
uh, I know, speaking to a lot of friends who create, there's this desire to control and really be sort of play God as the architect of the world you're making. And one thing for me in talking about respecting the mystery is
mm,
also allowing myself to surrender to what's coming, and not trying to, you know, be too much of a hand in the picture that's being trying to be made, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
when I create, it's not always I have to whatever idea I have doesn't have to be the final. You know,
mm,
the idea is the sort of the seed, and however it wants to germinate and grow, I kind of have to just get out of the way and let it do that.
mm,
Uh, and there's certain the muse tells you when you're kind of trying to be a bit too involved,
mm,
and and it humiliates you as well when you try and get to it. For me, anyway, when I
mm,
think I know what the piece needs, I quite quickly get shown that, oh, my idea is actually really rubbish and I should
wow,
try something else. And I think that's part of that emotion of awe, that sort of like uh, respect for the grander picture, and
mm,
understanding that I'm just a cog in the wheel of humanity and reality and creativity. Even it's just
mm,
it's a thing that's ongoing. It's an endless
mm.
symphony. It's ongoing. It's dancing, and I'm just a part of it. And I should do my bit and leave the rest. You know.
Wow, that's quite incredible, really. Sort of thinking, as a thinking about what it gives you as a creator, somebody who is like you say, kind of germinating the idea,
Hmm.
and with a view to sort of putting it out there. And then on the other hand, you have me and the other listeners that are taking that in, kind of wondering, what's sort of inspiring this, and then thinking about then thinking about how it what it means to me.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, well, firstly, I'm always the first listener of anything I make, right?
Mm,
So I'm also responding to it in a similar way to anyone else.
yeah.
The influences that come in as I consume that, and it's come out in my work in, I guess, a unique way because of my own experiences and my own unique experiences, and me sort of like authentically honoring those experiences and all of that. But yeah, I mean, as the first listener, like I have to respond to the material and then put it together in a way that feels true to it and to
Mm.
myself. You know, yeah.
Good. I mean, going back to when you were growing up, when you were a kid.
Mhm.
you know, what do you remember as being your? I mean, just you know, sort of not necessarily musically, although I'm obviously interested in that as well. But it's kind of generally, you know, your kind of big things that you remember, whether it's, you know, sort of, you know, happenings or events or people that you were hanging out with, real kind of like inspirations that formed who you are today.
Yeah, so many. Um,
Mm,
I was born in Nigeria, um, to British Nigerian parents.
yeah.
Parents were born here in the UK, but they had me in Nigeria. And I mean, when I think of the kind of, I mean, my dad was big Hendrix fan,
Mm,
big Thelonious Monk fan,
mm,
big Fela Kuti fan. So a lot of that, and a lot of Afrobeat, a lot of, you know, well, I mean, he never really even played jazz, but he always spoke about it with the
yeah.
highest sort of respect, and that's what got me into it. You know, just how he spoke about jazz, and then Hendrix, of course, and you know all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, my mom was probably the bigger influence musically. Um, she's like a big fan of just great voices. It was
Yeah.
Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Il Divo, you know, Pavarotti, or any just big grand voices, and
Yeah.
that kind of influenced me too. And just like also being a kid in Nigeria, in Lagos especially, it's so. I mean, you know, London has a lot of noise pollution, but
Yeah.
there's nowhere near as much as Lagos is. All there's always noise.
Yeah.
You know, I thought about, especially with my the records before, like Our New Bloom and stuff, where I've tried to be a bit more subtle and quieter. Um, I realized that even that, just trying to be quieter with my work has been such a hurdle to come to, because my instinct is to fill like maximize the
Interesting.
production, you
Yeah.
know. And it's been such a great thing for me to be able to just, you know, I'm gonna have just piano.
Yeah.
That's something I've really struggled with, because of my upbringing in Lagos. There's just so much noise all the time, whether it's trailers going by or generators buzzing or the refrigerator is too loud, or you know, there's a siren going on in the street,
Yeah.
or people yelling. Even just how Nigerians speak is so
Yeah.
loud
It's
and
loud.
big, grandiose, and I love it. I love
Yeah.
everything about it. But yeah, that's, I think, if anything, that's been something I can see as a big influence in how I produce, produce work. It's like maximal, you know,
Yeah.
full full steam ahead
I
kind of
was
stuff.
watching that's interesting. I was watching a program. It's been on. I think it was on iPlayer, the series that Afua Hirsch did recently on Africa.
Mhm.
She went to sort of three places. She went to Morocco, Nigeria, and South Africa.
Mm.
And you know, talking to, you know, to sort of musicians in each country, to musicians, to you know, like movie makers, to, you know, anybody, you know, people, you know, working in fashion, and the 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 spirit, the sort of the, you know, the entrepreneurial spirit in Nigeria. You know, so I think she was in Lagos for most of the party. I think there were a couple of other places that she went to. It was incredible, and yeah, I could see it's hard not to, you know, be significantly influenced. You know, when you have such a creative and you know, positive creative environment, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. It's that thing, like, yeah, with all the adversity going on there, like people just find ways to blossom and
Mm,
be, express themselves wholeheartedly, fully,
yeah,
dynamic. You know, yeah, I feel very lucky, you know, having that heritage. To be honest, because yeah,
yeah,
there's no, you know, you don't really think about giving up. Like when I think of like Nigerians doing anything, there's no, just find another way to do it. You
another
know,
way.
another way to do it. You know, that's just like ingrained in that culture, which is very
Yeah,
beautiful. And I think that really is what the creative spirit is about. At the end of it, it's just finding a way to blossom, finding a way
yeah.
to express, no matter what. You know, yeah,
That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, the other point that you made about, you know, kind of being surrounded by noise, you know, as you were growing up, and learning to, you know, bring in quiet and almost sort of silence sometimes. I mean, what was that experience like? Because silence is really really hugely powerful, I think.
Hugely powerful. You know, I went to see Sigur Rós last week or the week before
Yeah.
at the Royal Festival Hall, South Bank,
Mm,
and man, just beautiful.
yeah.
But they're a band that kind of have that effect of awe, expansiveness, but also just space. There's so much space in their work, and I mean, I'm a huge fan of this. So over the years, I've seen interviews of them talking about landscape in Iceland being like an
Yeah.
influence, and because of how it's just like space again. But I think it was partly to do my desire for that was partly to do with experiencing their music as a teenager,
Mm,
and just like it's like these like the Untitled album, just like these repetitive, um, quite quiet piano motifs just going on, and them being like spaces in between bars. Whereas that was so unusual to me from like my upbringing. It's like you know of African music, like Fela Kuti's music is the rhythm section is there, it's
yeah.
on, it's never going off until the song ends. And then
Yeah.
everything else goes and it's just continuous. Right. So I was so used to just groove and flow, groove and flow. There's no space, there's no stopping. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think experiencing people like Sigur Rós, Johan Johansson, uh, the classics, Arasati, Debussy,
Yeah.
there's that Debussy quote about like the silence being a bit, more powerful than the music.
Yeah.
All of that stuff just, you know, do you know what? I think even more sort of like in tandem to this, I think also my personal practice with silence, starting meditation, for instance,
Mm,
yoga, doing breath work,
yeah.
uh, all of these things. I think those I don't think I know those have been big influences into how my music's kind of evolved into the more quieter stuff, and
Yeah.
also
Mm,
being sober, and a combination of being sober and also sort of very mindful. I think it's just quieted my mind a lot more, and
yeah.
has allowed me to enjoy those silences a lot more.
Mm, mm.
Comes through in the music, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it's interesting that on the breath work, and I mean, I'm totally with you on that. The breath work and sort of meditation and yes, being comfortable. I guess our lives have over the years have just become filled more and more. There's been less time to to take that sort of step back. And I remember reading it was about it's been about 2008, round about that sort of time, and I wasn't going through a particularly good time at that in 2008, and I read The Art of Power by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist
Yeah,
who died in the last couple of years, I think,
yeah,
and it was yeah, and it was. I remember that there was something that really sort of stuck with me, and it was around how when we get up, a lot of people, you might have the radio on, or you might be listening to music, you might be reading something, you might be having a drink of tea, and you're doing all these sort of things at the same time, and your brain can't possibly have the capacity to absorb the positivity of all of those things, and that really stuck with me.
wow.
And I've never managed it, or not managed it consistently, but trying to remember that, when you just a simple act of having a cup of tea, I think is just like
Mm, yeah,
really kind of powerful.
hmm yeah, absolutely. Um,
I think I think it sort of helps you, with with those sort of silent times, and because we don't get much chance to do that.
no, we don't. I mean, it's just what modern life has been designed to be: is continuously bombarding you with information that you don't need. uh, and disorientating you, right? Confusing you. And it's, it's that's the consumer culture we exist in these days. That's what, the big tech industry people want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important if it was definitely important for me to actively just do all I can to give myself some headspace. It helps with anxiety. Like when you're bombarded with stuff, I get decision fatigue. I don't know what to do. I'm
Yeah.
confused. I'm not sure, especially as a creative, you have to be, very self-starting, and when you're sort of just filled with stuff, and especially when I go online and I'm dealing with seeing other people's career moves, and it's like, oh, that
Yeah.
person did that thing and it worked for them, maybe I should do that. And and then but then you see the next person doing another thing that works, and you're like, maybe, and you get confused, and you just don't know what
Absolutely.
to do. I think it's so important to um, almost force yourself to face silence, face being away from the social media world, the internet world,
Yeah.
face, it's so difficult, but yeah, we absolutely need it.
I mean, it
Um,
takes, it must, yeah, I totally hear you with that. And it takes like quite a lot of, fortitude and self belief
mhm.
to, to ignore that, kind of keep it out of your world while while you're creating, even post creation, just, kind of generally. But it's hard. It's hard because it's just there. It's almost like sort of so ingrained. But I think it's kind of essential. I mean, how do you sort of manage that? Practically.
I don't manage it very well. I get very
Yeah.
overwhelmed, and it's also like, like I said, these tech people spend billions and billions of pounds to make sure we stay on their platforms.
Yeah.
Mm. And that's really the problem.
Yeah.
It's like sugar. It's like cocaine. It's like heroin now. Like these.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, for me, um, uh, I'm not always good with it, but I try, and like I'm very sort of disciplined with my exercise. For instance,
Mm.
I do like boxing once a week, sometimes twice a week. Make
Yeah.
sure that it's an hour and a half, and my phone isn't there. Um, I try my best not to be on socials. If I'm in the house after sort of 9:30, 10 p.m., I don't look at my
Forget it.
phone.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work, um, especially when I'm out. That just doesn't. I'm just on my phone anyway.
Mm.
Um, uh, Meditation, I try and do that. I journal as well, so I make sure in the morning before anything, it's like I do like my journaling and meditate for as long as I can. And, just
Yeah.
some days I might do 5 minutes, some days it might be 15, 20.
Yeah.
So I just try and do that. And then I smiled when you mentioned like sitting with a cup of tea, because that's one of my morning things. Of like, I make my sort of herbal tea and just sit
Yeah.
down before I turn on my computer or anything. I just sit down and kind of enjoy that moment, and then I sort of get start the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned, journaling. I mean, my partner's into journaling. I mean, she's been doing that for maybe a couple of years. And I mean, she's really benefited. She's a real believer in journaling. She's tried to get me into it. I did start and then failed. Just,
Yeah, it's not always easy, and I hate writing. I'm very dyslexic, so like writing, reading words just
yeah.
stress me out. But I just get it out. I don't worry about spelling. I don't worry about making too much sense. I just kind of like just do it. And if something, there's some days where it's very clear what I want to get down on the page. Some
Yeah.
days, most days, I'm not clear on it, and I just don't think of it. I just get it down. It doesn't matter how. I had this. This is my book. So this is how big my journaling book is. So I just
Yeah.
at least get like a page down. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna open the pages just in case, but like Yeah, I just get like a page down in there every day.
I did a few years ago. I did just a one-off, like an hour's stream of consciousness writing,
Mm,
and it was, yeah. I mean, it was kind of quite. It was quite eye-opening. We were
yeah,
just given a couple of prompts. Basically like a starting point, and then just sort of went into it. And if there was ever any kind of block that came, you just kind of encouraged just to try and forget it and just carry on writing, or think about another one of the other prompts, write that down, and then start from there. But it was really interesting, and it just kind of thought, oh my god, this really sort of like opens up this sort of world of deep inside your
mm, mm,
subconscious.
yeah. That sounds like a great practice. Actually, that sounds like a great practice. Even just for like to help with improvisation, your improvisational mind. Like
Mm.
that'd be a really good thing to do. I might steal that now.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we can talk about that more, but it's definitely it's worth having a look at. I think all these things are worth having, a conversation about. Just as, I mean, some things work, some things don't. It depends,
Exactly. Yeah.
on so many things. But I think that the key thing is like sort of open mind, isn't it? Being open minded to trying these things. And you mentioned about improvisation, and I mean, what in your life, in your music, I mean, how important is that in how you're living your life and creating your music?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, definitely. I mean, my sort of writing process is uh, uh, 30% improv, and then then the rest is like editing down what I've improvised to make a piece, make a song or whatever.
Mm,
So I often I've said in the past before, like especially my more sort of eccentric stuff, it felt very much like a Jackson Pollock kind of painting. It was just like splodging everything on
yeah,
the canvas, and then mercurially carving away at it until I had maybe an album or a song, whatever it was. So
yeah,
at times like when I did Your Psyche's Rainbow Panorama,
mm,
a lot of those songs, a lot of those pieces were just like these grand, weird Aphex Twin influence electronic odysseys, like 10
yeah,
minute, like just constant beat changes. And then me just trying to whittle them down into these like, 2 minute, like just compressed,
condense
like,
them. Yeah,
you know, um, so improvisation is very important to me. It's like get the thing out as quickly as possible. There's no wrong in the beginning because I'm the only one listening to this. Is I just need to commune with the muse and let that walk through me. Whatever needs to come out has to just come out. And then my more sort of logistical mind kind of just says, okay, you know what, this is a bit too much. This is a bit, maybe I can rein it in here for the purposes of sharing it to people. And
mm,
I think at some point, when I'm a bit more masterful as a musician, I think I will be more inclined to just share the completely raw things.
wow,
But
yeah.
right now, where I'm still sort of learning myself, I think it's good to come back and edit it.
Oh man, you be very modest there. You've been very modest.
No, I
Oh
mean,
my.
I know I'm good, but there's levels to this game.
I'm,
Uh,
I'm, I'm interested what you said. If I could just interrupt for a second on what you were saying about the, when you first get things out, just letting it sort of come out.
mhm,
I mean, that is, well, I mean, maybe I'm just sort of projecting myself of my experience of trying to do that in. I mean, I play the cello as well, but
beautiful.
trying to do that almost like I sometimes have a fear of that,
Mm,
because it's like, okay, I can't, I can't start. And it's similar with writing. If I'm doing any sketching, it's
mhm,
like, okay, I'm a little bit scared of what's going to come out. I mean, maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, are you fearful of what comes out, or is this just have you coached yourself to do
Um,
this?
no, starting is the easiest part for me.
Wow. Okay.
Easiest part for me. It's when I don't connect with the material that's the hardest part for me. So say if I've like, I spent 3 hours just working on bits of music and I'm like, okay, I have these chords here and I have this melody here and I have this drum pattern here and I have another drum pattern and I'm trying to put the things together and see, just see what comes of it.
Mm.
When things don't come together, that devastates me.
Does it?
Yeah, I just think I'm the worst artist
Oh
possible.
no.
It's that's devastating. But sitting down and starting always feels good. It just feels like
Mm.
I'm breathing. It's like, and then when I kind of open my eyes to, so the improv part is very because it's just letting it flow. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It just
Yeah.
has to. And then I see what's there, and if I'm not resonating or if I resonate with one bit but it doesn't work with all the other parts, yeah, that sometimes that really cripples me.
Does it?
And yeah, and I try as a rule of thumb, I try not to go when I'm not on like tour, or when I'm especially when I'm just in London for a long period of time. I try not to go like more than 2 days without like writing something new. Uh,
Mm.
So, it doesn't matter if it's 30 seconds or 30, whatever it is, just more than, no, I can't do that. So, I make sure that's like a thing. Every
Mm.
day I come, and I think that's like how you get great at anything. You just kind of show
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So I really, yeah, we get bogged down and worried about showing up to the thing because we're like, well, can we do the thing? If we did something great for
Yeah.
ourselves, we're like, can we do it again? But those things shouldn't matter. Show up, and that's it.
I think just listening to you talk there, I think it made me think that I have um, there's a part of me that is very analytical, and I kind of like analyze things. So I think about, well, what about this? Not so sure. And then there's another part of me which is um, where I've been learning a lot to sort of trust my instinct.
Mhm.
So I kind of have this bit of tension, between those two of the instinct trying to release me, but the analytical, maybe a control thing that's
Yeah,
saying, you need to.
that's that's the human condition. It's this push and pull between how do we learn to surrender, and then also when do we learn to interject and state our presence. It's the hardest thing. I
It's
struggle with
really
that.
hard.
I struggle with that because it's like I struggle with it more outside of creating. So
Mm,
the business side of things, I struggle with that because I'm like, you know, um, I work very independently. So I work
yeah.
with Pra, in terms of like doing shows, for instance. Those are usually my own. Like all the touring and stuff is usually just my own doing.
Right.
Um, I struggle very much with knowing when to relax from that and just allow. So, okay, this is a quiet period now. I'm
Mm,
not going to do 10, 20 shows in a row the next 2, 3 months. I'm just going to be at home and creating. And, I'm, is part of me is like, because I'm not doing much, am I failing? Am I,
mm,
there's that analytical, voice that kind of like
yeah.
mentality voice of like you gotta like keep on, so you gotta be, you see it all the time. I see it all the time on Instagram. Oh, if you don't post 50 times a day, like you're losing out. If you don't have a TikTok, you're
Yeah.
doing, and you kind of have to. Well, each their own. I don't know what anybody has to do with that because
Mm,
I don't know what to do with that. But I find what helps with me is just leaning more towards the instinct side. And
yeah.
I think big part of instinct is, again, going back to what I was saying about surrendering.
Mm.
I think leaning more into that always helps me sort of like become at peace. And she's like, what will be, you know. Um, uh, but it's a hard muscle to grow and flex, like being able to be like okay and trust your gut.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing.
I wonder with that if we've we've lived in a kind of society and a culture that has pretty much defined what productivity looks like, and
Mhm.
it's like producing something tangible. It's like saying, okay, well, I've organized a gig today. That's great. I've got, and
Exactly.
then tomorrow you do another one, and then that's because of how we've been the environment that we've lived in. That's kind of an achievement. Whereas, but if you think about, if you take a step back, then actually sort of taking time for yourself, for your own self care.
Mhm.
I mean, that's sort of just as important, because doing that is allowing you then to go and to have the mind space to be able to go and book that tour and stuff like that. But it's still not reflected as being a part of productivity.
Yeah, I mean, capitalism hasn't found a way to make money off of that. That's why it's not in the
That's
system.
very true. Yes, exactly.
As soon as that becomes profitable, I'm sure it's going to be everywhere, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it'll be a good thing. I mean, it
That's
is a
very
good
true.
thing. You know what I mean? But yeah,
That's
it's just it. Like
that's very true.
you know, is
So
not
when
good.
you were saying earlier, Tony, that about when you're putting like the the starting point, the improv, and then there's other pieces and they don't fit together, and that is difficult for you. I mean, again, how do you those are difficult things when you're almost like, okay, I have an idea, it hasn't worked, got to reassess and restart. That's
Mhm.
kind of that is kind of quite tough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's again, I feel like art, doing any art or whatever, that process is a great simulacrum for life.
Mm,
So going through that process, you realize all the emotions and all the things you do in that as they happen in your day to day life anyway.
yeah.
So it's like when I go through that, that's that's just a great indication. Like, oh, you know what? I need to pivot. I need to change. I need to have the humility to say that I don't
Yeah.
know and surrender. Right? It's the
Mm.
same that happens in day to day life. One trick I've found. I've known it for a while, but it's when something just clicks, you're like, oh, this really works. This is like a hack or like a life hack. Anytime I'm like struggling with the piece and I can feel myself get angry, I just go to sleep. Just go take a nap for an hour,
Ah,
2 hours, and without fail, when I come back to it after that nap, whatever is going on, I'm able to elevate it to a better,
wow.
better a better thing. That happens.
Interesting.
It's funny. It's the last in the last couple months. I don't know how many pieces of music I've made, but I've been working on this album and helping this person's project and so on and so forth.
Mm.
And because I'm working on so many pieces, it's felt like quite a slog sometimes. And there's been so many moments where I feel like, oh, this is terrible and I'm stagnating. But
Mm.
every time I'm just like, I'm going to get up and go to sleep or go
Mm.
for or I'll go for a walk and go to sleep. But the sleep, for some reason, I mean, I'm not one of those people that understands sleep very well. There's that book Why We Sleep that I've been trying to read. I haven't read it properly yet. But
Yeah.
you know, sleep always seems to help me recalibrate and come back to the material. And I just know what to do. It's like
Interesting.
puzzles or like the chessboard. You just know what move to make to get the checkmate
Yeah.
afterwards. And I can't explain it. Um,
No, that's fascinating. fascinating how that works for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Would you call yourself a perfectionist?
No,
No.
not in the slightest. No. I just things just have to feel good to me.
You have to feel good. It's the
They
feeling.
have to feel good to me. I have to be like, oh, this is feeding my soul. It doesn't. I'm not a perfectionist. And I think that's probably why there's so much material of my stuff out in the world. I don't mind. There's so much stuff that I put out. I'm like, this is absolute dog shit. Like there's the EP I did years ago for Justine. There's some songs on that thing where I'm like, this is complete rubbish. But at the time, there was no sort of like, and maybe this is to my detriment at times too, but like there was no sort of like, I knew stuff wasn't complete, but I just wanted it out. I just wanted, or complete is the wrong word. I didn't knew stuff wasn't perfect, but I just wanted it out because I'm like, what am I waiting for? I wanted, a big thing of why I love doing music. I mean, I love communing with the material for myself. I love living with the material. I feel it brings me closer to my innermost nature, my innermost being. But I love sharing it with people. I love having people engage with my work and either tell me it's great or tell me it's rubbish, but just to have it in there and have people listening. I love that feeling. I love that communion.
That's brilliant. I love that. I really love that. I think that's great.
Yeah. It's communication. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about establishing a heartfelt dialogue with my fellow people. So it's like this music. Communication is that's what living is about. It's whatever we communicate with food, communicate with visuals, communicate with oxygen. It's all dialogue. So in a very sort of deep. I don't always like using the word spiritual, even though I feel a very spiritual person, but a very deep spiritual way. That's all this is. So with music, for me, that's like when I speak, like as I speak to you now, I speak very passionately. I don't speak with just my voice. I speak with my body, my hands. I'm trying to. There's energy that wants to come out.
Absolutely,
and music has been such a great catharsis in getting a lot of that energy out of me. If I don't have that, and if I don't share that, it results in very difficult times for me. It's very hard to live when I'm not expressing through music or through art, and sharing it is very hard for me to live.
It's interesting that is your catharsis. That's your way of communicating, way of saying and saying to others, this is what's going on, and also for yourself to bring those feelings, those emotions out. Such a powerful channel to have.
That's we all need those channels, whatever it is for you. We all need those things. I really believe that's the reason we're here, is just to actualize ourselves through whatever medium find palpable.
So, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, people who paint, people who write, whether it's kind of whatever sort of fiction, non-fiction, or whether it's poetry, that's all that sort of self-expression. Even kind of people involved in sports. You mentioned about going, doing exercise. That in itself is a kind of release, and it's an expression of of that as well. I think all of those are of equal importance.
Every avenue, as long as it's constructive, as long as it's creative, it's important to do it.
But also sorry to interrupt. You,
honest,
you,
I feel good.
no, you mentioned about that sort of earlier stuff, earlier music that you produced. That's you at that particular point in time.
Hmm.
That is you, and that's a what came out is a reflection of what you were, of who you were.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
interesting looking back at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I would dread to think, looking at back, some of the stuff that that I've done as well. But it's I think once you get over that, well, for me at least, that sort of fear of kind of, okay, let's look back at that. Okay, well, it was me. That was me at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I don't regret anything I've
Mm,
shared or anything I've created, good or bad, whether I like it or not. I don't regret it. It's
yeah.
maybe there's one. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I don't regret anything I've done. Even if I don't like it, I'm just like, well, it's part of life. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many mistakes I will make,
Mm,
have made in my personal life, and they've made me grow. They made me be better
yeah.
um, every single time.
Yeah.
Single time. Anything I don't I distaste from my past has improved me.
Yeah.
You know, as every single time.
The so your videos, your visuals, uh, I mean, are really stunning. I mean, they really, kind of, again, sort of capture something, and I like I do like the idea of sort of visuals and oral, sort of combining, whether that's the video or even just the artwork
Yeah,
that goes into it, sort of combining to give that it's so, kind of like a sort of 360 sort of impression of what you're producing.
yeah,
But I think
absolutely.
that there's certainly for the video, that work is really powerful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I'd love to really delve into the visual world a lot more. I mean, when I was in art school, I used to do
Mm,
so much with visuals. I was big. I am still such a fan of Terrell and Oliver Eliasson on the visual arts world. You know, so that whole like dematerialist movement,
mm,
uh, deconstructivist or whatever they call it. That stuff, and then in the film world too. It's like, those amazing auteurs like Kurosawa or Jodorowsky and
mm,
Terrence Malick, even. Just people who really know how to tell story through visuals rather than like narrative. You know,
yeah,
um, I love those things. I am deeply moved by those things and influenced by those things, and it's the same as music to
mm,
me. You know, it's like I was talking to someone the other day about synesthesia,
mm,
um, and I kind of I don't know. I'm one of those like when people say I have synesthesia, I'm like it's so arbitrary to me. I don't see it as something you
mm,
know makes anyone special. But people see it differently. But it's so arbitrary to me. But in saying that, like my experience with music is so visual too. It's like I see the tones, I see the textures, I see um, you know, these things come at me as colors, as figures, as memories, as scents, smells. You
yeah.
know, it's funny. Like when I did the whole new bloom thing, I started making perfume as a
Ah,
response.
okay.
I started making my own perfume as a response to that project.
Wow.
Um, and I just think that's just another outlet of creativity. It's like
Yeah,
this, I'm getting the sense from this music.
that's
So
fascinating. I love
with
that.
like yeah, it's just just create, just being creative. But with the doing the videos, it's all responsive to the music. There's like and there's a story that it wants to tell, and it wants to become visual. Obviously, when you get to making work, when you get to making anything really, like there's going to be a point where you have to compromise, and certain things that
Mm,
want to come out can't because of budget, logistics, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, I really hope I can get to a point where those things, those compromises don't have to be so severe, because there's so much that I'd love to share in the visual world, you know.
Wow.
But
That's
yeah,
very
sorry.
exciting.
On a
No, so
tangent.
that's really exciting, and I think, you know, what I did a a sort of short graphic design course. When was that? That was beginning of this year, and it was only like, you know, kind of four weeks worth. But it made me. I found a graphic designer called David Carson, who I don't. He was I mean, he's still, you know, teaching now, but he was very big in the 90s, and he basically broke all these sort of rules around, you know, how graphic design should look for magazine design, you know. So he would you know, if there was a front cover, I forgot the name of the magazine, what the famous magazine was that he did. I can't remember now, but he would have like a, you know, sort of cover image of a you know, particular, you know, musician or artist or whatever. And for example, their name would drip off the side of the page, so the full name wouldn't be printed, and so it just had the effect that it made your brain work.
Yeah, I like. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And and it's similar with you know, kind of visuals and, you know, interpretation.
Mhm.
I think of what it means to you. Sometimes it's better to leave it unsaid.
Leave it unsaid. You know, make the audience sort of fill in the blanks for themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think artwork works best when it's not trying to shove information down your throat. It's like, you know, it's like a lot of good material works best as a Rorschach chart sort of thing.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, here's a splodge, and you sort of fill in the blanks. You know, here's a sort of a catalyst, and then here's a splodge, and you fill in the blanks. You know, it's like, I think that's really the best. That's a big reason why I love, like, I mean, the cigarettes for one.
mm,
You know, John C. singing in his the made up language. You know, you kind of
mm,
just, you know, you're hearing the human voice. You don't understand what it's saying, but you feel it saying something very significant
yeah,
to you, and you
yeah,
just fill it. You fill in the blanks that way, right? Same.
yeah,
That's why I like a lot of Tom York's songwriting, like his
yeah,
lyrics. A lot of it, it's very opaque. I'm not really sure what he's talking about, but then there's just these moments where there's like, you know, sometimes he's, you know, is a bit more straight in
yeah,
terms of talking about whatever he's talking, but it's, you know, it's like setting a tone and then just giving some cursors of imagery, information, and then you sort of like make out what it means to you.
yeah.
You
I
know,
think
I
I
think
think that I think that approach sort of helps with, well, perhaps does, you know, with self awareness. You know,
mm,
so being aware of, you know, what does it mean to me? It makes you kind of look inside yourself, doesn't it?
that's the point. That's the
Yeah,
point. That's the point. That's what we're meant to do with this stuff. It's that dialogue. It's meant to continue. You know, it's like you share something, and someone else takes that and they analyze that within themselves, and they have that conversation with themselves, and then they have a conversation with the next person, and everyone just kind of continues to have that
yeah,
dialogue with each other, and hopefully that helps our species evolve and be better, you know, by
yeah,
us continuously having those conversations with ourselves and with others. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, that's what it's all about, man.
So on that, what's coming next for you? I think there's some fairly interesting stuff coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we've got this piano. Well, I say it's piano. There's like three piano pieces on the record, but
Yeah,
yeah, we've got this sort of piano EP, the one with Lost Forever, and the solo version of Rhododendrons.
yeah,
Got that in July, I think, sometime this summer. Got a few shows here and there. It's relatively quiet for the summer for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot more coming up September, October, November. So that'll be quite busy. And, I've got a record I want to put out. I'm itching. I'm dying to have this out in the world. So hopefully that's going to be next year now.
This is brand new stuff.
Brand new stuff.
Brilliant.
It's a world away from all the other stuff I've done. I'm very proud of it. It's finished. I think it's like 95% done.
Yeah.
But like it'll probably be out at some point next year.
That's amazing. I mean, again, that sort of evolution that you have, kind of sonically, has been sort of very obvious in what you put out so far. So to carrying that on, it's incredible for your own growth and for listeners. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. I think what I find the best way to be to continue to grow, because I look at all my stuff and I realize, a lot of the musicality is quite similar. I'm using the same chords, like the similar melodies and things, but how it kind of elevates and grows is how I put the things together. And it's usually the textures, the rhythms, the instrumentation.
Yeah.
What I found with a lot of the artists I find the most unique, they kind of, every album project has like the focal point. Like Björk will have an album that's orchestral.
Yeah.
And the next album will be around the flute. The next album will be around electronic production, whatever it is, right? But there is a focal point, right? And then it's from there you kind of elevate and you have this unique, end product.
Yeah.
Rather than like just coming in with the same perspective from every time, right? That for me helps me elevate and become better, because I mean I also believe this. One of my favorite quotes that I heard is Marina Abramović said this in an interview. Someone else said to her, it's like, every good artist has one great idea and every genius artist has two. And I kind of live by that as well. Like, I don't know if I'm a genius artist, but I'm definitely a good artist. And when I go through all the stuff I've made, I can see there's a thread, right? But when stuff starts sounding more unique, I think that's because of the changing the focal point from which still, because it's still me at the end of the day. I'm involved in, but it's like, let me change my perspective. Let me look at it from this place. Rather than like focusing on electronics, let's working, mainly with a string ensemble, or working just with the piano and that being the focal point, whatever it is. I just find this they just help creatively.
Yeah. Tony, that is brilliant. It's lovely to talk to you. Thanks so much. It's been an honor. Really has been an honor listening to you. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much, Charles. Same here. Really appreciate you reaching out and talking like this. Is really nice.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show, and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.